want to give you guys an update on what we've been doing on the new shop rig, the 79 CL9000. This weekend I wanted to do the top end adjustment on the engine, adjusting the rockers and the intake exhaust valve and injectors. Before doing that, wanted to clean up the engine really well, so once I get the rocker covers off, no dirt or debris got knocked down into the engine. And I thought, it's been 3 or 4 hours pressure washing it. Well, that turned into about 7 hours of pressure washing. So didn't get the top end adjustment done this weekend, but did get the truck cleaned up pretty nicely. The engine is multicolored, so still doesn't really look the best, but at least it's got all the dirt and debris off of it. Obviously the paint can be addressed later. The main thing is it's mechanically sound, and now I'll be able to see any additional oil leaks that need addressed. So next weekend I will be doing the top end adjustment. But while pressure washing the truck, I did find a couple of cool surprises. Number one, this truck has the optional aluminum front axle, which is a cool weight saving option. And this truck was really optioned out quite nicely. It came factory with the NTC 290 big cam Cummins, which is only the 270 horse motor. This one has been swapped though. This is a 1981 NTC 400 big cam, so the 400 horse variant. The data plate is gone off the front timing cover, but it does have where they all have the serial number stamped in the back. And I was able to get on Cummins and verify that it was an 81 NTC 400. And another giveaway is the big aftercooler intake manifold. So we do got a solid engine here that makes good power for the truck. While pressure washing the truck up, obviously I found a whole host of little knick-knacky things that need addressed. Obviously all the hoses and belts and whatnot needs to be replaced. There's a lot of this stuff that's just starting to deteriorate over time. I did get this truck from out west. This came from Nevada, so it's a very solid truck. Once I got all the dirt and grime off of it, it was used to haul gravel with when it was still in service a few years ago, so there was a lot of lime dust and residue kind of mixed with the oil, but there's no rust on it to speak of. I've been looking for one of these trucks for quite a while, and we're from the Midwest, so a truck that's 40, this particular truck's a 79, so it's 44 years old. Finding trucks around here that aren't all rotted up is pretty hard to do. So while it was a little bit of a hassle and expense to get this thing hauled back here from Nevada, I think it's going to be well worth it in the end, having a solid rust-free truck. So some of the things we got to do once I get the top end adjustment done, I want to make sure that the motor is all good to go. But I think that's really all that it's going to need. It's just got a little bit of white injector smoke and a little bit of a mist when it's cold, but it does start to go away once you get some heat in it and run it a little bit. So we'll get those rockers dialed in and see what we got. But I want the truck to be back to stock condition as possible. So over its 44 years of life here on the planet, I'm sure it's had a few host of owners, and some guys are kind of just need to get something fixed and get back on the road. So obviously there's some less than ideal wiring repairs that have been done here over the years, with stuff just kind of zip tied and ran all haphazardly. So need to go through and figure out what some of these wires are doing, get rid of a lot of them, and let's get this thing back to stock as we can. The cool thing about eBay is you can still get a lot of the factory service manuals and whatnot. So I was able to get the factory shop service manual from Ford, the factory parts manual from Ford. It did come with the Cummins manuals for the engine. I was also able to get the wiring harness as well for the factory service manual. So I'll have all that stuff, which will help me on getting this thing all wrapped up and dialed back into completely stock. So throughout you can just see where somebody's added some wire and kind of zip tied some stuff, and same over here and same on the other side. There's a big spot, so definitely gonna get the wiring all addressed. And then the fact that the truck's just 44 years old, there's a lot of hoses and lines that are gonna have to be repaired and updated. A lot of deteriorating on some of these sheathings and whatnot, so gonna go through and start figuring out my lengths and what size fittings and whatnot, and start getting lines coming for it so we can get those all swapped out. One of the other cool things about these trucks, well, this one has, somebody's added a rooftop AC on it, which those things work good, but that wasn't factory. The cool thing about these particular trucks when they came out and they got a lot of good reviews for it was the heating and cooling systems on them. They actually have, right there's one HVAC unit, there's another one over there on the passenger side, and then one in the back of the cab. So there was 3 different heating and cooling zones in these trucks. Now everything's still here. The AC compressor is still there, so I imagine at some point it probably started leaking, or maybe the compressor went bad, or maybe both. So I do want to, start going through that, pull the pump apart, rebuild it, start replacing all the lines, and then draw a vacuum on it and see if the thing has any leaks, if we have to replace any other components. But I'd really like to get the factory AC system back working again. Another thing that somebody's hacked up in the cab is the HVAC controls. The heater switch is no longer operable, but somebody's put a little toggle switch in that turns the fan basically. I mean, they did do it where you got at least 2 different blower speeds, but still not factory. So I do want to, I assume the heater switch is probably bad. So see if I can source a new heater switch for it and get that wired back up how it's supposed to be. But like I said, I'd like to get the HVAC system working as well. In addition to that, there's a few other little problems that need addressed. This cab has the optional air ride cab. So in the back there, you see there's an airbag on all 4 corners. This one still has the air ride in the back, but at some point, I imagine the bags probably started leaking. Somebody has to replace the front airbags with these solid spacers, so need to get new airbags for the front, and I'm gonna go ahead and get new airbags for the rear just because these are starting to get a little old and dried out, so I'm sure eventually those are going to start leaking as well. The good thing is they left everything intact, so the airline is still there for the front airbag, as well as the ride height sensor that controls the airbag, so all that stuff's still there. So once I get that back in there, that should work. Some of the other little problems I did notice, the tilt cylinder here, while it's cleaned up now, this was covered in grease and oil, and it looks like when somebody lowered the cab down, they probably left a safety block kind of, I don't know if it fell down on them or what happened, but halfway down and got into the front here. So I imagine it's probably leaking out of the gland nut here, and probably not the cylinder itself, probably from that damage if I had to guess. So gonna have to try to find one of those cylinders if it can't be repaired, which given what that looks like, it's probably gonna have to be repaired or replaced to fix that correctly. Another thing was the pump back here. So this is how you pump up the cylinders to tilt the cab up. It's leaking out of the bore there, so I'm gonna take that apart, see if it's just an O-ring that needs replaced. Hopefully that's all it needs. Hopefully I don't really see any big gouges on this itself, so probably new seal on that, and that should take care of that. Let's see some of the other things. Oh yeah, so these trucks had originally, which I assume that's what this is right here, they had a fill and oil check dipstick that should have ran up through here and was accessible through the grill, kind of up through that area. So I need to see if I can't source both of those items, because it would be really nice to be able to check and fill your oil at a gas station without tilting the cab up all the way, just being able to open the grill up and do that. Like I said, all the lines need to be gone through and replaced, so I'm gonna start getting measurements and sizing on all the lines throughout. I want to do a little bit better job of routing them to, some of them have the factory Del clamps still in place, and then other spots they're kind of looped around, so I don't know if some of these had been replaced and replaced with something they just had that was maybe too long but would work. But definitely going to go through all that, make it as nice as we can. The other thing, the exhaust, it's seen better days, and it's got that, that cheap flex section stuff you can get for it. So it's cracked and leaking, obviously, which is what those things do over time. Being that we're a fab shop, my fab guys Billy and Jeremy are super excited to do me some nice 6-inch stainless exhaust for this thing. So the first go around, I'm going to do it without mufflers. Hopefully it's not too loud. I guess we'll see. If it is, we can always add mufflers back in, but we're going to try 6-inch dual stacks. Factory, these things would have had the flaps on the top, not the turnouts, so I'm going to put flaps back on it. And another thing we got to do, I measured from the tip of these exhausts to the ground is right at 12 foot. Well, that kind of presents a problem getting in the shop doors, which they're exactly 12 foot as well. So the new setup, I'm probably going to drop it down to like 11.8, so that way it's got room for the flappers to still get in the shop without hitting the top of the doors, which is still taller than the cab, so it'll still look pretty good just dropping it down a few more inches. Some other odds and ends, obviously I want to get the frame painted on it, so I'm gonna pull the lines back but leave the existing lines there as I paint the frame, and then once I get the frame all painted up, replace the lines and then go through and replace all the air lines. That's the way that way I don't have to worry about overspray getting on my new lines or new air lines. There's a lot of lines to replace throughout, so that'll be a pretty good undertaking. And like I said, the wiring harness has just kind of been hacked up over the years. So this was the tail light wiring harness, and it, you know, obviously once you get to about back here, somebody's been hacking on it. So get that all replaced. The looming's starting to deteriorate, so once I get the wiring harness all sorted out, put fresh loom on it, get it all back up in the frame how it should be. Also going to replace the airbags. The back ones look like they had been replaced not too long ago, so I might leave those in place. These front ones look a little more worn, a little drier, so going to replace the airbags on this axle anyways for sure. Gonna go ahead and do all new shocks on it, including the shocks. You know, the air ride cab also has shocks on it as well, so replace those shocks and fresh set of air lines for it. You know, we don't want to get out on the road with this thing and start having issues. So before this thing sees any road duty, it's gonna get a lot of stuff changed on it. So anyways, I'll be posting videos as I get some of the work done on it. Like I said, next weekend I'm going to be doing the top end adjustment, so I'll get a video on that. It looks pretty straightforward. The only thing that's going to be a little challenging is getting to the crankshaft timing marks, which are way down there. Actually, I spent a fair amount of time pressure washing that, so hopefully I got that all cleaned up good, to where I'll be able to see it when I start cranking it over by hand, because you got to get the crank in, you know, 6 different positions to do your 6 different adjustments on the cylinders. So I'll be doing that next weekend if I get some free time on Saturday, and then keep on plugging along on it. I'll keep videos up as I can. Thanks, guys.